Hey everybody, this is the Curious Lock Picker, and I wanted to make a quick and informal video about sliders. I want to talk about what sliders are, what they look like, how they fit into the core, how they interact with other elements in the core, how they prevent the core from turning, and of course, how to manipulate and pick them. So I'm going to be demonstrating this with this core. This is a Yale Superior core. You have a dimple key that fits in here. This is where you have room for 9 key pins. This is where the 4 sliders fit in. They're all spring tensioned. And this is where the sidebar fits in. Now, the important thing to realize as you watch this video is that sliders by themselves don't really prevent this core from turning. They prevent the core from turning, if you don't have a key, of course, or if the core is not picked, by interacting with a sidebar. So I'll show all of those pieces separately, and I'll tell you guys how they interact, and we'll talk about how to defeat them. All right, so this is what a slider in the Yale Superior actually looks like. So the 2 important components of the slider are this groove that you see on the bottom, that's called a gate, and this piece of metal on top. Now, this piece of metal will actually show itself in the core when it's placed into the lock itself. And this piece of metal is actually what you manipulate as you're trying to pick it. The other component that I want to show you guys is the Yale Superior's sidebar. This is what the sidebar looks like. And in a few seconds, I'll pull up the core and I'll show you how it fits in and how it interacts with those sliders. All right. So this slider fits into the core as such. Fits in just like this. You have a spring that goes before it, and then the slider goes in. And as I mentioned, that little piece of metal on top is actually what shows itself in the keyway, and that's what you manipulate as you're picking the lock. So let's try to zoom in, and we'll try to see that. So if I get this thing to focus and the angle is right, you'll be able to see that slider move. So that slider is on the bottom right of the keyway. And as I manipulate that slider with my finger, you might be able to see it move back and forth. Let's see if I can get a good angle on this. Like that. As I press, you can see that slider moving to the left and to the right. So the way we're going to manipulate that as we're trying to pick this lock really depends with what you're comfortable and what tools you have available to you, but the way I like to do in this particular case is to use something like a half diamond. So I'm going to be fitting the half diamond into the lock as such. I'm going to line myself with that slider and I'm going to twist. And as I twist this way, I'm going to be hitting the that piece of metal on the slider with the tip of this half diamond, and then it's going to slide in and out of the core as such. All right, so the next thing to talk about is how these sliders actually prevent the core from turning. All right, so the way this works is that the slider interacts with the sidebar. And when the slider is in its incorrect spot, as it is right now, when this slider's in there, you'll see that it doesn't lie flush with the core itself. So this is actually what prevents the core from turning when this lock is not picked. So when this is in the Bible and you try to twist it, this little protrusion will actually hit a groove in the Bible or its housing and prevent the core from turning. So how do you get around that? Well, what you do is you manipulate the slider with the technique I mentioned before, and you slide it such that, let's see if I can get a pick in here. You manipulate it. Actually, I apologize. I actually have to turn the slider around. I apologize about that. There we go. So right now the slider's in its incorrect spot, and when you manipulate it, you'll see that the true gate actually lines up with the slot for the sidebar. So right now, if I were to put the slide bar in, it would protrude out of the core and prevent the core from turning. But if the slider's in the right spot, that true gate lines up. And when we put this this sidebar in, you'll see that it actually lies flush and no longer prevents the core from turning.